Now, it may be true that I have the privilege of learning lots of colorful and pretentious vocabulary from the average college class, but if you ask me, college is a gargantuan, agonizing, protuberant thorn within my symmetrical clavicle and my lonesome, flabbergasted wallet. Thankfully for me, the ragtag group of homies over at Hulu headquarters decided to be generous enough in this 1,000-year streaming war to rack down their student pricing by a whole $4. No wonder Cardano is shooting through the roof. All these depressed and overwhelmed college students don't know what to do with all this dough. And with this slightly less expensive venture into movie streaming came a chance to catch up on some awesome 2019 movies, some COVID Oscar-nominated movies, and even some smaller indie movies that I didn't even know existed. Within the latter group of these films, there was a certain dark comedic thriller under the name of Spree that managed to catch my eye over everything else in this B streaming service. Basically, if you want an apt description of the film, it's got mad comments on society to rival that of Joker, along with plenty of LA satire caked on comparable to that of Southland Tales. The star of this horrific flick is composed of an incel wannabe influencer who makes horrifically bad content. And at the exact moment I was introduced to this main character, I thought to myself, wow, he's literally me!
That's basically along the lines of popping open an emerald to find a diamond inside. The game is still amazing. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned Tonic the Sledge Dog. Get it?
Holy crap-a-doodle, was my content bad. However, there thankfully came a time where I began to gain a decent amount of self-awareness to realize just how bad it really was. I saw how basic the writing was, and I tried to expand more on the jokes and concepts that I was trying to communicate. I saw how incomprehensible the structure was and tried to reform it in order to pace out the video in a more natural way. Heck, I even saw how garbage the technical
aspects were and tried to save up in order to afford higher quality equipment. And all of this improvement came from the hatred for possibly creating anything of poor quality. Unfortunately for Spree, there is not an ounce of this self-awareness to be found anywhere. To preface, the vast majority of Spree is indeed a horrendous pain in my AirPods. However, despite its best efforts to physically assault my intelligence for a lot of its polluting presence, the movie actually begins on a somewhat positive note by introducing us to the main character in a fun and stylish way. Meet Kurt, played by Pretty Boy Stranger Things, a cringy clout chaser that strives for nothing more than to become a viral influencer. And in order to showcase this character and his goals, the film subjects us to the type of YouTube content created by a little cousin where you're forced to respond with, "Oh, good job there, sport, that's real nice." We get a little insight into his backstory through lowbrow vlogs, gaming videos, and even double-digit subscriber Draw My Life videos. So a good job at a pat to you movie, you managed to lull me into an excruciatingly false sense of security. But what we don't realize is that we are just scratching the tip because this iceberg has quite the edgy side to it. And as soon as this edgy side starts piercing my soul and my left hemisphere alike, the film quickly devolves into utter nonsense. With years and years of attempting to go viral in the traditional way eating away at his mental health, Kurt hatches a plan to stream himself murdering people within his Uber knockoff job called Spree. He begins by randomly picking up LA residents and coaxing them into drinking the poisoned water he placed in the back seat, and moves on to more creative options later in the night. Admittedly, this premise could bring about a certain amount of cheesy and enjoyable fun, but Eugene Coca-Lalarico over here had other plans with his execution. Not only is the first act of this movie as repetitive as our Minecraft Let's Plays from middle school, but the first guy picked up by Kurt is such a parody-level racist who probably isn't wearing the robe because of it turning pink in the wash. This really doesn't add any sort of quality to the scene outside of the palpable, ironic enjoyment.
It's good to see men like us trying to master this, social media stuff. We're gonna need it.
Yeah. What do you mean men like us?
White men. You are white, aren't you?
Yeah.
Have you read the IQ studies?
Like, the writing here is implying that we should be shocked by the realism of this racist, but there's nothing realistic about the way this 4chan board talks to a complete stranger. Plus, I don't feel anything other than basic human sympathy when he dies, and Kurt doesn't manage to bounce off of him in any defined sort of way either. He just gets real peeved off and is like, "Oh, what the heck, bro? I'm not gonna get famous if you're saying a fat racist on the stream like that." At least the second victim to Kurt's murderous rampage is actually kind of a normal human being that I feel bad for dying. But there's a whole other problem with this specific kill and some others to follow it as well. The film tries to present the audience with a multitude of instances where Kurt can be easily noticed and caught for his crimes. But what's rich is that it tries to pretend that we want nothing more than for Kurt to make it out of these situations unscathed. The music is bombarding you to feel tense, and Kurt is staring down whatever soul even thinks about putting a stop to his quest for virality. The fact that these encounters are written in a way to build tension makes me wonder what type of relationship the writer actually wants us to form with this sociopath. The tone is straight up expecting the reaction of, "No, Kurt, my love! I sure hope this police officer doesn't put a stop to your murderous rampage. Those two people you poisoned so far deserved it because they lived in LA. Like, dude, it's not like I'm rooting for this maniac in any way. He might be a ridiculous exaggeration of a somewhat relatable thirst for internet fame, but are you really trying to say that this makes his actions excusable?
I think you got that. Yeah, we got it. But it's grounded in this relatability that we all sort of feel like, like we just want to get the likes and the clout. Because otherwise, how would anybody else know we exist? But it's grounded in this relatability.
Anyways, as we follow Kurt further on his quest for validation, he crosses paths with an actual successful comedian/influencer. Even though she comes across as about as funny as the average SNL snail, although we're gonna have to remember this plank of wood for later, so let's all just take a mental screenshot before we get back to the American Psycho for the digital age. Oh my god. So with multiple people murked directly on Kurt's stream at this point, he begins to become frustrated with the fact that he isn't viral yet. Because within his kooky, detached universe, this is the exact type of content that people should be gravitating to immediately. He then begins to vent his frustrations to the only person viewing the stream the entire time, my man, Bobby Basecamp, a quote-unquote friend of Kurt who built up a decently sized audience by creating the same type of content as your average clickbait whore Paul brother type. Although, there's just one teensy little weensy of a problem. He breaks this archetype in multiple instances in order to take on the role of YouTube's favorite plot device. It's bad enough that he's just cash money with the incessant murder, but you're telling me that this attention span of an albino weasel has the fortitude to watch this stream for an entire day, downtime and all? I mean, he's obviously watched a decent amount of it based on the comments he's leaving on the stream. Nobody wants to watch a white guy drive around? Well, I can think of at least one person donating to this dude's Patreon. What's rich is that all this actually ends up biting him in the supreme pants because of how Kurt feels entitled to some some sort of shout out from Bobby. So much so that he eventually rolls up to Bobby's house, practically demanding it. And Bobby complies for some odd reason with a camera strapped to his chest.
'Cause it's LA, man.
But as he's shouting Kurt and his awful stream out to the world of his toxic audience, he starts being a big fat meanie by spouting big fat meanie words.
Yeah, it's a really good idea for you, being someone with no sense of humor and no social skills. The face of an inbred dog.
This sends Kurt over the edge as he whips out a knife and gives Bobby a good shank, followed by a gun struggle, killing Bobby on a stream broadcasting to about 44 people. And you know what? I'm gonna have to go ahead and agree with Hut Crafty on this one and say that this does indeed look fake AF. Even though the makeup artist is trying to tell me that this red Gatorade is anything but fake AF. What makes zero sense to me from this interaction is the fact that nobody watching the stream during this murder thinks that this could possibly be real and that their beloved Bobby might actually be hurt. And this is the pre-notification gang that joins the stream literal seconds after it starts, so they are for sure some diehards sitting there with their Bobby body pillows. It's a bit far-fetched that none of them thought it comparable to LiveLeak, but I digress. So now with plenty of LA caricature strawberry jam on his hands and triple-digit brain-dead viewers on his stream, Kurt finally has the chance to interact with a small sliver of internet fame, and he brings it into the shower with it. Alright. This is the point where I need to be a bit positive for a second because I am actually a huge fan of this character and performance. The writing for him manages to perfectly convey the extremely avid attempts of humor, with the actual quality of the humor being absolute garbage. The amount of times my face was physically imploding on itself from the intentional cringe is commendable to say the least. For instance, there's one point where he's in the shower and he just acts like he's gonna release his nudes live on stream as a joke.
You guys wanna, I don't know, check out my boner? I'm just kidding. You guys will have to stick around till the end for that piece.
Yeah, it's just so awkward in the intentional type of way that the filmmakers were obviously going for. And props to Joe Keery, man. It's an uncommon practice for actors wanting to evoke such negative reactions from audience members, and he is going all in with this performance throughout, making himself look like a complete degen.
You got a lot of people looking at the back of your head.
So as Kurt is relishing in his newly formed insanity fueled by a few extra viewers bestowed upon him by Bobby's following, he notices a new opportunity in the form of his dad introducing him to yet another influencer named DJ Uno. And the chat resorts to bullying him into taking them to see DJ Uno and all that, and... Wait, no, I can't do this anymore. I cannot go another chat message without talking about how embarrassing and inaccurate this portrayal of internet culture is. Add some WTF moments or GTFO? Haters gonna hate? Jesse! Your comedy was the only thing that helped me through a really dark time? What the? This is the type of comment that would be found on a sentimental posted video, not on a live stream. You could definitely tell that the writers did in fact conduct some type of research in order to have a vague frame of reference for how all this stuff works. But that research comes across as very surface level because inaccuracies are widespread throughout. For one, the large amount of live stream chats and their speeds are horribly unnatural. So much so that a stream with 20k viewers is basically moving the same speed as a stream with 21 viewers. Ooh, if this were realistic, then that e-girl stream would be reaching Mach 10 at this point, with all of the ferocious and adamant stands out there.
Notice me.
Step on
Notice
me.
me.
Step on me.
Notice
Step on
me.
me.
Notice
Step on
me.
Date.
Step
Date.
on Notice me.
Date. Step on me.
Notice
Step
me.
on date.
Notice
Step on
me.
me. Date. Step on
Notice
me. Date.
me. My notice me. Step on
Step aside, degenerate. She will be thoroughly impressed with my katana skills that I have been honing over the years in the Himalayas of Chicago over and over again, training with monks for years and years. Not to mention the fact that a 23 viewer stream from earlier was receiving a pretty consistent flow of comments too for some odd reason. Oh hey, what's this? Some random guy I've never seen before and not the actual person I'm subscribed to for content? Oh wow, I would have to say that this is definitely enough stimulation that I am now going to actually exert myself by typing a comment expressing my thoughts on this situation I really care about. From the actual content of the comments to the portrayal of livestream chats, none of this screams authenticity to me. There's even a moment where some weeb sends a donation message to Kurt communicating with him about DJ Uno, and this message somehow sends out the gate within the blink of an eye. Ghosty over here was just sitting back and enjoying a nice stream on his Sunday evening, just sipping on a cup of coffee, when all of a sudden, he heard the delicate and majestic name of DJ Uno. Oh gosh. Oh no. Yeah, this film is making me lightheaded. Although we haven't even gotten to the worst part of this unintelligible TikTok yet. So strap yourselves in, folks. So Kurt meets up with DJ Uno Instagram lady and starts just showering her with tier 3 subs in order to gain a shout out to his night of killing. But in an actually decent scene, he comes to realize in a very quiet manner of simply staring at the chat that she was more than likely not going to be shouting him out from his begging. And it's honestly pretty disturbing watching his eyes become more and more sunken as he comes to this revelation.
She's gonna tag you, bro. She loves
Gosh,
how do you like Los
dang it, I
Angeles?
was trying to enjoy the moment. So after me and him wipe the blood from our ears, Kurt returns to his car in a huff and a puff, but suddenly, DJ Uno returns with her shoutout being locked behind a simple request.
Taco trucks in
Take me to LA taco truck and I will tag you.
What
really.
time? I'm kind of in a hurry. What time is it?
And no joke, no cap, no hyperbole, this next scene is one of the most baffling experiences of my entire life. So as Kurt is creepily flirting with the lady in the taco truck line, Uno decides to peruse around the car for a bit where she finds the same gun that was used to kill Rice Gum over here. And she just starts taking pictures with it, not even batting an eye to the fact that she's holding a gun in her hand, but whatever, it's fine, it's the commentary of the film, so I guess I'll allow it. She then decides to take a fat swig of the poison water that caused a grown man and woman to violently choke and presumably die. But just chatting streamers, they're just built different, cause she merely lets out a little cough and passes out instead of the horrific organ failure that was presented earlier. 2 cops then notice this passed out woman in the passenger seat of a man's car and understandably get a little suspicious. And to make sure that you guys manage to get the full effect of this scene, I'm just gonna let it play out without rudely interrupting whatsoever.
1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000.
Should make him touch his
6
nose.
1,000. Jake, shut up. 7 1,000, 8 1,000.
Your
9
girlfriend's
1,000,
pretty hot.
10 1,000, 11 1,000.
Good. She's awake now.
What the? Jesus fucking Christ! What the fuck? Officer down, I need backup!
Thank you, God.
Don't you worry. I am just as confused as you are right now. Why did she randomly wake up just minutes after passing out? Why did she randomly shoot the cop in a fit of fear after passing out in a neutral environment? Why on earth did she flee the scene after committing a pretty crack shot on the police officer's thunker? So many questions, and not a single answer feels the need to reveal themselves to the audience here or even later on down the road. This is just the perfect example of when the script has absolutely no clue what it is doing in the slightest. Regardless of how stupid the journey was to get here, Kurt is now in a high-speed chase against the police, and I actually really like this scene as a whole. I'm not sure if it's just because I'm desperate for any faint sense of feeling other than cringe at this point, but this scene really does manage to fill me with a large amount of exhilaration. It's got some cool filming techniques of using various camera feeds capturing the chase, and the soundtrack is bumping the critical thinking skills right out of my brain. Oh, 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 oh. Wow, I'm almost forgetting how much I hate this movie. Then at the end of said chase, Kurt flips over his mom van in a spectacular crash, but instead of being apprehended by the police during this moment of being cornered, he just manages to hobble himself over to the comedian from earlier doing a stand-up routine. You see, earlier Kurt saw that this specific show was going to be broadcasted to a rather large audience, so he hatched a plan to somehow attend the show and intercept that audience in order to quench his thirst for virality even more. And this, my friends, is the belated moment where I realized that this film was a disgusting, pretentious fart that had been wistfully flowing through my eyes, ears, and nose for the majority of its godforsaken runtime. In this scene, the comedian character decides to take a bold, a fearless, and unprecedented stand against the evils of social media. She dares to proclaim that the practices of social media can have negative repercussions. And she even informs the audience that she will be taking a break from social media. I know. And they rightfully gasp at this horrid suggestion. And no joke, this stand-up lecture turns out to be the most viewed performance on that heavily viewed and heavily trafficked website, along with also being the routine that catapults this character into the celebrity stardom that she never received before, implying that there's some air of importance and originality to this message that she's communicating.
Yeah, but there's only one simple little problem.
Everybody knows this! The negative effects of social media is one of the most talked about topics on social media, with hundreds of papers, articles, documentaries, YouTube videos, and even Reddit posts. And the people who are most aware of it are the people who practice moderate social media usage. And these are the exact kind of people who would be the ones to boost Jessie Adams into the celebrity stardom that she received. Sure. There are plenty of young adolescents and even adults who aren't aware of how detrimental social media can be sometimes. But it's such an over-encapsulating issue that even these people have to be somewhat aware of it as well. And it doesn't even come across as if Spree is trying to add anything to the conversation either. The whole performance and writing of this scene plays out like one of those TED Talks nobody's ever heard of, where a 20-something white CEO just rehashes why toxic masculinity is bad. Nobody is watching Spree and being like, "Oh wow, thank you, Eugene. My third eye has now been pried open, and I will now take this newfound knowledge and spread it with my peers while we spread Nutella on our chicken tendies." I would have to say that this is by far the biggest problem that manages to destroy the film inside and out, mainly because a lot of the ridiculous and dumb plot contrivances could be easily excused if the film just reeled itself back into a cheesier, more horror movie type tone. But no. Something grandiose, some new epiphany is required from the audience member with about as much subtlety as a Tyler 1 stream. Now, I'm gonna be honest and say that not much else of note happens in the last act of the film. There's a big showdown between Kurt and the comedian lady. Kurt killed his mom for some reason, cause he's crazy, and everything ends in the final middle finger, where funny SNL lady takes a selfie with the bloodied face of Kurt at the request request of the now 4chan-infested chat. Yeah, forget any terms and policies that riddle these social media sites and take down posts that are even the slightest bit offensive. Yeah, forget the streaming services that take down streamers for saying the word blind. Yeah, just forget subtlety and any semblance of research that you could put into making this a more informative and engaging experience. Yeah, just forget it.